13 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few defense DST units I would start this week. The first one, the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Chiefs here, great matchup this week at the Denver Broncos that give up the 6th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. So this Chief defense, they've been a middle of the pack defense all season. But when it's time to come with a good matchup, they've come through over the last few good matchups they've had. Week 10 versus Jacksonville in that one, 17 points allowed, 5 sacks. Week 11 at the Chargers, 27 points allowed, 5 sacks, and a fumble recovery. Week 12 versus the Rams, 10 points allowed, 3 sacks, 2 windows. And Week 13 at Cincinnati in a tough loss, 27 points allowed in the sacks. So right here, Week 14, good matchup at Denver. Russell Wilson, he hasn't got anything going, his worst season of his NFL career. And this offense is in shambles over there in Denver. So I think this Chief defense can make a few plays in this ball game and is a good defense to start this week. The next defense, Philadelphia Eagles. So the Eagles, last couple weeks here on paper, not greatest of matchups, but they've gone out there and still produced pretty decent fantasy numbers. Week 11 at Indianapolis, 16 points allowed, 4 sacks, a fumble recovery. Week 12 versus the Packers, 33 points allowed, 3 sacks, 2 interceptions. And Week 13 versus the Titans, 10 points allowed, 6 sacks. And right here, Week 14, a good matchup at the New York Giants that give up the 17th most fantasy points to defenses on the season. So right here, I think they kick it to Daniel Jones a few times. This Giant offensive line obviously isn't that good. They don't protect well for Daniel Jones. And sometimes he holds on to the football too much and looks to run or force a play. So right here, I think they'll get a few sacks on Daniel Jones. I think he's good for 1 or 2 turnovers in this ball game. And this Philly team's clicking on all units. So this week, their defense is definitely a start. The next defense is the Las Vegas Raiders. So the Raiders, I mentioned them as a 1-week use only in my waiver wire video if you haven't checked that out about the defenses. But anyway, the Raiders, a great matchup on paper at the Los Angeles Rams. They give up the 3rd most fantasy points to defenses on the season. So the Raiders here actually last week had a decent ball game as well versus the Chargers. So the last few weeks here for the Raiders, Week 11 at Denver, 16 points allowed, 3 sacks, a block kick. Week 12 at Seattle, 34 points allowed, 3 sacks, an interception, a fumble recovery. And Week 13 versus a solid Charger offense, 14 points allowed, 5 sacks, a fumble recovery. So right here, I think they could do damage at the Los Angeles Rams. It's either going to be Perkins, Bryce Wolford, and an outside chance that possibly newly claimed Baker Mayfield could start this game. But they're down Cooper Kupp. They're down, obviously, Allen Robinson for the season. Henderson, they cut a few weeks ago. And the offensive line is weak. So right now, I think this Raider team could get to the quarterback early and often in this game and hold down this offense for the most part to the mid-teens, low 20s at best. So I got the Raiders as a start this week. The next defense is the Buffalo Bills. So the Bills here, they're out for revenge in this week's ball game after losing Week 9 to the New York Jets. And right here, the Jet offense definitely has improved with Mike White in the lineup and Zonovan Knight filling in for Michael Carter over the last couple weeks. So this Bills defense we know is one of the best units in the game. We know Von Miller, he's out a few more weeks on injured reserve. But I still think they could get to Mike White in this game. And a lot of hype about Mike White, but so far Jets 1-1 with him on the center. I think the Bills are going to get pressure on him, and I think they're going to cause a few turnovers anyway. We saw White last week throw 2 windows versus Minnesota. So the last few games here for Buffalo's defense. Week 10 versus Minnesota, 27 points allowed, 4 sacks, 2 windows. Week 11 versus the Browns, 23 points allowed, a sack, a fumble recovery, a block kick. Week 12 at Detroit, 25 points allowed, 2 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries. And Week 13 at the Pats, 10 points allowed, and a sack. So right here, the Jets give up the 13th most fantasy points to defenses on the season. And I think the Bills come out with a vengeance in this one and have a great defensive game. In the 5th and final defense DST unit I look to start this week is the Seattle Seahawks. So the Seahawks here, home once again, 6-man on their side with Sam Darnold and the Carolina Panthers coming to town. So the Seattle team, it's been an up and down type of season on the defensive end, but when they have a good matchup, they definitely do deliver. Week 10 versus Tampa in Germany, 21 points allowed, 2 windows. Week 12 versus Vegas, 40 points allowed, a sack, 2 interceptions. And Week 13 at a weak Ram offense, 23 points allowed, 4 sacks, and 2 interceptions. So right here, I think they could get some pressure on Donald. We know Sam Darnold, at least 1 or 2 turnovers a game he's good for. And right here, this Seattle team, they got to keep winning ball games, and this is a good one for their defense to come out and make a statement. And the Panthers do give up the 10th most fantasy points to to defenses on the season. So that's a few defense DST units I'd look to start here for week 14 of the fantasy football season.